Hello, now I'm going to present the presentation, the client-side presentation part of the dashboard, and in particular, since this presentation part implements a model view control pattern, I'm going to describe the model part. So the model that you have in the front end in the presentation actually is copied from the back end. So, and this model is manipulated in the front end and written back to the back end. So one way to describe this is basically to show you the communication between the back end and the front end. And this is implemented in these services package, in these remote services. Okay. In these remote services, you have a large set of invocations that I'm going to describe, but it actually uses a library called Axios, and is in this part of the library it is defined the header of the request. So actually the token, when you log in, the token is stored in a component called store in Vue, and every time you do an invocation, this element goes to the store to get the token. Okay, so every invocation has the token, and you don't need to worry about it. Okay, and other thing that happens in this is that every time you get a notification, error message, it's catched and it is presented. Okay, so you don't need to worry as well with when you do a remote invocation to the backend, and the backend send you an exception, and you receive, and basically this exception is presented in red on top of the screen. Okay. So let's look for the dashboard that is already implemented. So these are the dashboard and statistics controllers that in this sense are controllers on the other side, but they are part of the models. They are controllers in the back end. So this is in the front end. So this is a very simple one. So this is actually I'm doing an HTTP request, a GET, okay, and this is the URL of the GET. In particular, I use the store, so as I know in the store always which is the current course execution. So when you log in and you go to the course execution, this is stored in a global variable. So you don't need to worry about it. It's automatically when you log in or when you choose which course you want to work on, in which course are you working, interacting with, which course execution, and this is stored there, and so it's used to do this invocation. Okay, so what is interesting now is that what you receive. So you're going to receive a dashboard object. So this is the other part of the model, and this dashboard model actually it's a JSON object, or in this case a JavaScript object, but that copies the JSON, and this object actually receives from the DTO, from the backend. Okay, and another thing that is relevant here is that, of course, if you have an error, you just throw it here to be presented. And what is more relevant here is that you return a promise. What happens here that you need to know? So every invocation in Ajax with Axios is asynchronous, but sometimes it's really relevant to make them synchronous, because if you start having out of a synchronous invocation, you get a lot of problems with concurrency and it's difficult to manage. So it's more simple to make it asynchronous. So instead of returning the object itself, so you just return a promise of the object. Okay, so here you are creating the object, but you return a promise of the object, and who's invoking this? So you say that this invocation is asynchronous. As we'll see, who's invoking this will basically wait for the end. So it waits until this has the information. Let's see it. Okay, find usages, and here, okay, basically when you invoke it, look, you do await. So it means that the front end waits until it gets all the data and stores the data there. Okay, so that's the best way, and it avoids problems with asynchronous invocations, and then you need to wait for, and then you do an asynchronous invocation, and the code becomes to be a bit messy. Okay, and here you have another invocation where you get the user statistics. Okay, so basically these are the two invocations that are already implemented. You'll need to add your invocations there for to change the failed answers, or to update, or to get the failed answers, and so on. Okay, so what's left here is to go to the model and see how this representation of the DTOs, which is actually the model here, it's presented, are handled. Okay, and it's very easy. So you have your attributes, and if you look at your attributes there, they are pretty simple, very similar, or they only need things that they have the same name that in the DTOs, and you have a constructor, and basically the constructor receives a JSON object and just copies the attributes from the JSON object to this object. Okay, and then this object is used in the presentation. So if I find usages, we'll see that is here. So for in the statics view, you have this object that is manipulated, and then follows this structure where you have the view and the controllers, so the objects that actually change the model that is there. Okay, I think it's pretty much what you need to know about, or to start knowing about this relation between how the model, part of the model view controller in the presentation is implemented.